Hi, this is your sewing Sherpa Shauna, and I fixed my hair and put on some makeup so I could do a little video tutorial for you on how to sew the Antoinette Market Bag. I call it the Antoinette Market Bag because a good friend of mine in Austin made this for me and sent it to me. Her name was Antoinette, or is Antoinette, she's still around. So the Antoinette Market Bag starts with a piece of fabric that is 18 inches wide and 52 inches long, or 52 inches long, 52 inches wide and 18 inches long, depending on how you cut it. Like if you cut it that way or cut it that way on your fabric. It could go either way with this one. So what you want to do after you cut it is you want to put a notch in 18 inches down on one end, and then a notch in 18 inches down on the other end, and do that on both sides, and you should be left with 17 inches between these two notches if I did my math right, which I'm not going to double check myself right now. But you're going to do that exact same thing on the other side, and that will help you figure out where to fold. So actually the thing is after you notch this and then take it over to your sewing machine, the first thing you're going to do is roll hem each side, and you're going to do a 1/2 inch roll hem, or a 1/4 and a 1/4, which is a 1/2. So you're actually going to probably want to take your chalk and notch it a little bit deep, well, like mark it a little bit deeper on the wrong side of the fabric, because you're going to need to know where to fold it after your roll hem is done. So notching it is how do you get the information from your pattern to your fabric, and then the chalk is going to be like your cheat sheet later. So that has been marked on the wrong side with just regular tailor's chalk. Everybody should keep a piece by the sewing machine. Then I'm also going to cut another piece, a small piece that's 5 inches square, 5 inches by 5 inches, pretty simple. So I'm going to start with this and the bag part. And the first thing I want to do is I want to roll hem each side of the bag, every single one. So I have on here a roll hem foot. This is supposed to be a 1/4 inch roll hem, but I put on my 3/16, which is 1/16 smaller, because I feel like a 1/4 inch is, a lot of the fabric gets sucked up in those. Anyways, 1/4 inch ends up deeper than you'd think it would. So I might have to redo the beginning of this. I'm not going to back tack. I'm in a 2.5 length, and that foot should fold this up, whoa, for me. Yeah. Sometimes it takes me a minute to get in the groove with these roll hem foots. You know, like I have to do a few feet or a few yards before I'm like comfortable and it's doing its job. So that roll hem the top really good, except for right there at the beginning. I'll have to go back in and kind of finesse that. Roll hem feet, like, you know, you don't have to have a roll hem foot. You could actually just fold it, and then oh, actually some people start their roll hems like that, like fold it, and then they slide it under and get started. And then once they're started, they slide this up into the roll hem foot. Let's see. This is not how I do it, so I'm learning as I'm teaching, which is great. That worked pretty good. But sometimes I like to practice on a swatch of fabric for a few feet to just kind of get in the groove of the roll hem foot. The roll hem foot doesn't actually have any grooves, unless you sew off the fabric too long. So I've got the 2 top edges rolled, and now I'm going to do the 2 long edges. You can go get yourself a cup of coffee, use the bathroom or something. When you come back, it'll be done. But this whole bag literally is so fast. So I did roll it right there and put it under, because there's no way that hem that I just did is going to go through that tunnel, like no way. So I'm going to slide this under and sew that in place, and I'm actually going to just use this roll hem foot as a regular foot for a few inches until I'm off that bump. Now I can finesse it up in there. Sometimes I can, sometimes. There. You have to be moving when you get it to go. That worked. It's not perfect, but if I did this 100 times, it would be. So see, right now I'm gonna be roll hemming in my notch. Ugh, and that notch did not want to roll. Roll, you notch, roll. There. But I still have my mark, so I know where to fold to. Ah! I just was wondering if it would go in if I went at high speed. It didn't. It's got a little foobar there. Oh well. So I get to the other end, and I'm again at one of those spots where it's going to be a little bit lumpy. I'm going to see if my foot will let it go through. It might let it go through. I might have to go back and like kind of fix it. It did it. Sweet. And I did back tack a couple stitches. Now I'm going to do the other side. And I'm almost done. Like this whole bag is almost done. Ah, it's stuck. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold on to my tails here. Lift my foot just a little bit so I can grab those tails, give them to me, all right? I'm gonna, that's not working either. If you feel like you're not going anywhere, you're not. So I just lifted my foot, pulled it along. There, now I'm going somewhere. That's the same with the rest of your life, right? If you feel like you're not going anywhere, chances are you need to lift your feet up. There. I rolled my notch. By the fourth notch, I had it figured out. Oh, that's the third. You gotta roll it before you get to it. Oops. Oh. All right, so I've got all four edges roll hemmed. And the next thing I'm going to do is, I should have my little square here. This little square here, we're gonna make a tube out of it. So I need to have the top edge and the bottom edge clean finished. This top edge was in the selvage, so you can see like the information from this really cool piece of vintage fabric. So I'm only gonna roll hem this side. I find it's really actually kind of difficult to roll hem a short piece because you don't get that ramp, right? The ramp. You don't get that ramp. So you're going to want to have your regular presser foot close by that you can snap back on, and maybe do this roll hem by hand. So I'm going to roll my hem. And then sew my tube. This tube has a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Line up my edges. This is actually going to be a very visible part of it. You know what? This would actually be a really cute one to do French seamed because, but I'm not going to. But if you know what a French seam is, do a French seam on this because I think it would be an appropriate spot for a French seam. Okay, you know, I was talking to some students last night about buying a sewing machine, and these things where I step on the foot control and it clips the thread, love that. Some machines you have a little button, you can clip the thread by touching that button. Super sweet. Another thing that you can do, I get, is like this knee lever lift. So this thing is how I lift my foot up, my presser foot up without using my hands. And you can get sewing machines that have those. Those two little perks are super sweet to have in a sewing machine. And it ups the cost like another $500. But if you've committed to sewing, like get those perks. Those perks are, I mean, they make sewing fun. You can keep both hands on your fabric while you lift the presser foot, and you can clip your threads without having to pick up your nippers. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this little tube here and I'm gonna pick a corner. Am I gonna pick a corner? Basically, I have to pick a corner, right? I have to pick a corner, slide it on, and then that corner becomes top of the tote. So now I'm going to take this side. Oh, I can do it later. I can do it later. I was wondering if I had to do it now, but I don't have to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take one side, doesn't matter which side, and I'm going to fold it right sides together at the chalk mark. And I'm going to sew it into place as close to my roll hem as I'm comfortable. So I'm kind of four-buying. I call it four-buying because my foot's up on the roll hem, which makes it a little bit more difficult to sew. Get to the top and back tack a couple of times. This is going to be a point of stress. Then, instead of sewing this side over here, which you would think you would do, you're not going to do that. You're going to let that go. Let that go. Just let it go. And you're going to take this other side and fold it right sides together at the chalk mark. And sew this side together. And you're like, say what? So now I'm going to flip it right sides out. And this is the time where I'd press these seams open if I were the kind of girl who pressed seams. I do, I press seams. I do, but I don't do it when I'm being filmed. So I have this, and now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the bag by overlapping these top parts here and sewing a little square at the top. But before I do that, I need to slide this on because this is going to cover up this janky seam at the square that I can't hide. So I'm going to slide this onto here. Kind of get that out of my way. Then I'm going to overlap these two and make a square. You can overlap it, you know. It looks like I'm overlapping it about 2.5 inches. I'm kind of making it so that this top part is at a right angle to that, so I'm making a square like that right there. And this is one of those times where I'm like, I'm probably gonna put a pin in or two because this is gonna be hard to keep in place when I'm under the foot. And slide it in here. And I can sew right on the roll hem if I want to. I definitely want to pull that pin so I don't accidentally sew over it. So now this other side, I cannot see it because I can't, but I can feel it, right? I can feel that seam under there, and I'm gonna make sure that it's feeding right underneath the foot. Oh, and there's the lump at the end. I can feel that. So sometimes you have to feel your way through when you can't see it. You have to feel it. Make sure this is all laying flat. And I can trim my little threads here and slide my cuff up over that thing that I just sewed. And voila, have a cute little finished market tote that looks like it took forever to sew, and it's just a square. Have fun sewing your market tote.